Good evening, coaches. This is Krista Mullins from Special Olympics Maryland. Thank you for joining me this evening for the cycling preseason webinar. We'll be discussing some upcoming dates and just topics for general cycling knowledge for the upcoming 2018 season. I also have Steve Bennett and Mike Zarnowski also on the call with me today in case there are any questions. So tonight we're going to cover some season deadlines, the events we're going to be offering, some quick rule reminders, entry processes, certifications, and questions.
Hi, Kristen. I'm not sure if you're speaking now, but you seem to have gone completely silent.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any.
Okay, Kristen, yeah, well, I don't think anybody's hearing you at this point. So for attendees, if you are only hearing my voice but not hearing Kristen's voice, could you just raise your hand in the attendee window? Just so we can do a quick thank you. Just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, and I'm right.
Okay, looks like Kathleen as well jotted that in there. So folks can just give us a moment. Kristen, if you want to see if you can resolve that. If not, I can attempt to take over.
I just texted her to see it or not.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to take over as the presenter. Folks, thank you. Everybody's hands down.
This might get her attention.
Yeah, okay. So, folks, until Kristen has her audio problem resolved, I'll take over and hopefully she'll be able to join us again. Apologize for the technical difficulties there. So the agenda will go over deadlines. Luckily, I can, at least the first stuff I can handle without a problem. The events, rules, and so on down the line. And we'll go from there. And let's see. So as a reminder, everyone should be aware of this. This is no change from anything that we've had in place for many years, but no athlete, no volunteer can participate in any way, shape, or form with Special Olympics unless they have up-to-date medical form or volunteer application and the necessary certifications for the volunteers. We'll talk a little bit more about the specifics on that in a bit, but just want to be clear that there are no exceptions to this policy. There's no, an athlete can show up to 2 practices without a medical, and that's okay. That is not okay. That is in no way, shape, or form is that okay. And we know that can be tough to enforce, but it's absolutely necessary both for the organization as well as the athlete, and quite frankly, for your own finances as you take on serious liability, personal liability, if you aren't adhering to these rules. We have, again, no change here other than the actual dates, but 3 steps in the registration process. By September 10th, you need to have your training registrations done. That lets us know who everybody is who is participating in your program, all partners, athletes, coaches, volunteers, etc. If you don't know, well, there should be somebody in your county, in your area, who's entering this stuff into what we call GMS, which is our computer system, stands for Games Management System. If you don't know who that is in your local area, please reach out to your area director or whoever your contact is with your local area, and they can take care of that, making sure that you know who that is. Kristen, is that you that I hear?
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you now. Okay. So let me finish this slide and then I'll hand it back to you. Okay.
Well, hold on 1 second. I'm not able to change the slides.
Okay. Well, I took over as presenter. Okay. Let me finish this one and then we'll try to resolve that. So, but again, so anybody that's in your program needs to be registered. Again, whoever it is that handles that for your area. If you don't know who it is, find out now so you're not scrambling for that. This is also the 10th is the date that it absolutely has to be in the computer system. So they're going to need a day, 2, maybe a week to get it in. So talk to them now and find out when it is that they need to get that information from you so that they can get it in by the deadline. Certainly folks can join your program after that date, but they wouldn't be eligible to go on to the state championship. And they should certainly get registered if they join their program afterwards. Then we know that you do have some athletes that are starting and turning in forms, or volunteers that are turning in forms at their first practice. We give you a little bit of time to turn those around and get to us. Again, this is not to say that any athlete can participate without a medical. It's just giving the time that from when you have it in hand to get it in. Again, your particular area has their own process on how it gets into us. It's all done electronically for safety and for privacy sake. So talk again to your person in your area to be sure, whether it's your area director or whomever, to find out who it is that's handling that for you. Note also that their medical form needs to be valid through the state competition, which is October 20th, as well as any volunteer form needs to get through that. Keep in mind that volunteers need to have not just their volunteer application valid, but they also need to have protective behaviors completed. And all coaches need to have their concussion certification completed as well. We're finally getting into the wave since the concussion requirement was added several years ago, where folks are going to need to renew that. And so it used to be if anybody had done it, it was good. But now, again, everything needs to be renewed every 3 years, and we're getting into that wave here at this point in time. And then finally, on October 4th, that is the competition registration deadline. That's the date by which you need to have all of your competitors who are going on to the state championship at Fall Sports Festival entered with their events and their entry scores. You're responsible for getting entry scores from a competition for all of your athletes for all their entries with that. So that said, Kristen,
Mike, I'm going to move to the next slide.
I know that because I took over. I'm going to make you the presenter again.
But I can't move. It's not letting me. Okay.
Now you can click on show your screen, and now you can.
Okay. Sorry about that, everybody.
Wonders of technology. So.
I know. Now, were you here or were you back? You were back on the other slide, correct?
I got through the deadline slide. I have not gone any further. So
okay,
back
thank you. So I thought this was maybe about where I had lost you guys, but just listed on the screen are the events that will be offered at the competitions. Please remember that some of the local competitions, it's their discretion, their choice, Prince George's, Sykesville, even down at St. Mary's, what events they're going to offer. So definitely when I show the competition event schedule, you might want to ask those coaches directly what events they are going to be hosting. For example, one of the events that we've added this year is the 15K, which we discussed at the coaches training. And we came to the conclusion that we are going to offer 15K with a qualifying time of 40 minutes or less. And you must have your athletes complete in at least one competition and provide a competition score from this season to qualify for the 15K. Our official sports rules can be found at www.uci.ch. and our national governing body for cycling is USA Cycling. Also, the rules of competition I have attached in an email previously to many of you coaches from SOI. I will do again tomorrow when I upload this recording for you with all where the location of the rules can be found. There were rules posted in August of 2016. Once again, we have not received those new rules for cycling, but if anything changes, we will let you know. But of course, since we were already starting our season, we are not going to implement any rules changes unless it's a safety issue. Uniforms, matching uniforms are recommended, but they are not required per team. And helmets are required, and appropriate leg wear, no jeans are allowed. Of course, the recommendation of socks, shoes, gloves, eye protection, and some sort of hydration are just recommendations for your athletes. Please remember, coaches, that there are some rule reminders during competition. There cannot be any vehicles following the cyclist during a competition. Also, coaches are limited to certain sideline coaching. And also, we want to make sure that any of your coaching from the sideline does not hinder or distract other competitors. Please remember there are no radios. Cyclists cannot use or carry radios or any sort of communication devices to communicate with coaches during competition. Coaches Code of Conduct, which at this point last year was still under review, it has been finalized and approved. So I just want to review some of the Coaches Code of Conduct. That one section is respecting of others. Second section is ensuring a positive experience for your athletes, partners, making sure that in each athlete or unified partner competes in the events that will challenge them, and that scores are provided accurately, and that you will ensure that they are performing the best they possibly can following the Special Olympics sports rules. Also, acting professionally and taking responsibility for your actions, knowing that our athletes are watching you, watching all of us. And so we want to make sure that we display control, respect, dignity, and professionalism to all involved in the sport, and encouraging our athletes to provide and demonstrate the same qualities. Please know that no smoking or vaping products are allowed at the training or competition venues, and being under the influence of any alcohol or illegal drugs. And of course, what we're trying to do is to ensure quality of service, continuing improvement for performance evaluations, and keeping copies of medicals, training, and competition records for each athlete to help them be as successful as possible. And as we are kind of coming at the end of the summer season, we know it stays pretty warm here in Maryland throughout the cycling season. Try to maintain the idea of health and hydration for our athletes while they're out at their cycling events. Some rule reminders on equipment. Please make sure that your equipment meets the USA Cycling safety standards. We will have an official at the competition to inspect bikes if there's a question. Bikes must have 2 working brakes, no radios or headphones. And of course, there are modifications that can be approved by our cycling director as long as it's ahead of the competition. Medical assistance, or excuse me, mechanical assistance. Bicycles can be changed if a competitor experiences a mechanical problem. Assistance is permitted, and they may push their bikes up to 10 meters following a crash, a breakdown, or flat tire. And they can run the bicycle to finish line in case of a crash, breakdown, or flat. Wanted to quickly point out that we have differences between what a time trial race is. A time trial is a cycling event where they're competing against the clock. So once they go across the start line, that is their starting time. So they are racing against a clock. Versus the road race, which is a mass start event. They're going for a place, and it is a start by a whistle or a pistol. Qualifying for the state tournament, which is our Fall Fest event in October, athletes must compete in a minimum of 2 sanctioned competitions. One of them must be a multi-area competition, which includes more than one area, and the other could be a sanction of what we can consider an in-house competition, where it could be at your practice, but you still must submit a sanction form and follow all the rules of having timers, an official, and a set course for the protection and safety of your athletes. Remember that these 2 competitions is a minimum. Of course, we want to try to get as many competition opportunities to the athletes as we possibly can throughout the season. Here is our Maryland cycling competitions list as of today. We have one coming up in 2 weeks at Prince George's County. Our Sykesville competition is on September 8th. The Delaware competition is on September 22nd, and I know he had asked for a deadline of August 6th if you're interested in participating in the Delaware competition, but please contact Mark. He's more than happy and excited to have Maryland competitors come out and see him, but we just want to make sure that we follow the proper paperwork so he can get all the athletes registered correctly.
And Kristen, just to clarify, you'd said August 6th, but does that mean September 6th?
No, it was August 6th.
Oh,
because as you can see, it's on Dover Air Force Base. There's quite a bit of registration information that Mark needed, and he wanted to make sure that if we were coming that he had plenty of notice. But once again, as you can see there, he was willing to kind of stretch that date, knowing that we weren't going to have our webinar until today, the 14th, that if you are interested, if you think any of your athletes are interested, to just directly contact him. He's okay with that. Thank you for clarifying that, Steve.
Gotcha.
So other areas with cycling programs, if you have a competition coming up that you have a sanction form, you want to go ahead and email that to me. Let me know so I can get on the calendar and we can invite other areas to your competition. The rest of the forms are basic registration forms and procedures. It's a review. Those of you who've been coaching for many years, these are going to look very familiar to you, but it's just a refresher to remind you of what is expected to have submitted from your coaches, from your volunteers, and from your athletes at the beginning of the season. Once again, the slide is repeated because it is very, very important. No one should be participating in your program without proper and valid application forms. Please get with your area leadership, and also if you need to, ask me to help you out if you need to verify your roster. Remember, part of being a coach is having your protective behavior certification. It's a very easy 10-minute free training. It's very easy to do. It's self-paced, and I will also link that in my email to you tomorrow. It is valid for 3 years. Also, the concussion certification, if you are considered a coach, you must have this concussion certification. It takes about 30 minutes online. Once again, it is a certification that will send you a certificate, and you just send that to us, and we will upload and update your file on GMS. Our coaches sport certification is under review, but we've already had our in-person coaches training, so everyone is good for the season, but more information on that to come. And everybody should be aware that all athletes must have a valid medical through the last date of the season, which is October 21st. And here is an example of that medical form. The biggest thing that we need to make sure that down at the very bottom of this page is the signatures for the medical.
Okay. Kristen, one note, this is just something we've noted or noticed with forms that have come in recently for that medical. Only that new form is now being accepted. We've gotten a couple of an old form that's been outdated for more than 2 years now. I'm not going to show you the form, but it looks very different from this form. We cannot accept the old medicals anymore. Anything that we have on hand already is still valid for the 3 years, but we can not accept any new medicals on that old form. Someone must have it stored somewhere, have extra copies somewhere. But the area leadership's been told that a couple times. Just save everybody some trouble. Make sure it's this new medical form. It's not really all that new. It's been around for, I guess the form itself's been around for close to 3 years. And starting a little over 2 years ago, we made it that only this form is acceptable. So please check that ahead of time. We cannot accept the old medical form. Similarly, we can't accept the old volunteer form when Kristen shows that to you as well. It's the this new form that she'll show you.
Thank you, Mike. Moving from athletes to volunteers, please make sure that all volunteers have a current volunteer background check, both adults and minors. So here's what the volunteer background check looks like. It's 2 pages, front and back. And then the third page is if there's a reference, they are a minor, we need to have 2 references that are non-family members. Of course, you always want to make sure that you have on hand at your practices a incident accident report. Here's a copy of what it looks like. Also, you want to make sure you send a copy to your area director in case there's an incident at your event or at your practice. So if you need copies of these, please let us know or contact your area director. Thank you. That was the end of this presentation. Are there any questions? Steve, do we have anybody with a question or comment?
I have not seen any other than right at the beginning. Oh, Tom Estock does have his hand raised, and so does Rennie.
Okay, Tom, we'll go ahead and unmute you first. Go ahead, Tom.
And Tom, just to make sure you haven't muted your phone yourself.
Okay, Tom, it seems like we can't hear you. If you want to go ahead and maybe type your question or type it in the chat, we'll come back to you. Rennie, going to go ahead and unmute your, go ahead, Rennie.
Yeah, on the slide where you show the different races that you have, or the slide after that, you mentioned that trikes would not be allowed in any road races, that they are only allowed in time trials. Is that something that you folks are going to hold to, or are you going to do things again differently this year?
Kristen, you want me to address that?
Yes, please.
Sure. Okay. Hey, Rennie. Actually, Kristen, if you can scroll back to that slide. What's also on that slide, and I know we went through it relatively quick, is that for Maryland, you can request that a trike or another adaptive cycle can be used in a road race. It's all a safety issue in terms of the starts and such. So it's just a matter of requesting that in advance. I would say any adaptive bicycle or trike or whatever device that has been approved in the past would be approved again, but there can be so many variations we can't make a blanket approval. But if you notice down there in the various italics, this needs to be approved in advance, and then everybody know that the official Special Olympics rules for any higher level competition is that they adaptive cycles and such are only permitted in time trials. I should point out that if you're going over to Delaware, they may be sticking to that rule. I don't know their specifics for their event. So, but no change.
I know in Delaware they allow the trike. They'll put it in a separate division if you tell them ahead of time, but if you don't, they just let them. Right.
Yeah, so no change, just as we've gone before, but again, because there are so many variations, we can't just say, oh, any trike or any adaptive device is okay. We need to have that safety component there. But
well, I have talked about it. I don't consider a trike, a modified vehicle because they're coming off the assembly line designed that way. So.
No, I understand. Again, we're looking at safety at the starting line, but if it's been approved that that particular vehicle has been approved in the past, there should be, unless there's been some change to it, there should be no issue whatsoever with having it approved yet again.
Okay.
Okay, I think Tom had the same type of question about the trikes. Tom, if you wouldn't mind sending me an email, then of course we'll do our best to get that answer to you, and then also out to all coaches, because of course if you're asking here, it's valid for the group. Steve, I don't see any other hand raised or questions. I'd like to go ahead and close out tonight's webinar unless there's anything final that we need to address from anybody.
No, I just saw Tom will email you directly on his question, so appreciate that, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, well, that will conclude our webinar for this evening. Once again, if you do have any further questions or clarifications, just send me an email, and then I will get all this information out to you tomorrow. And especially areas, if you have qualifiers, excuse me, competitions that you have sanction forms for, please go ahead and get those to me so we can start the season with all of our competitions ready and set for the season. Thanks, coaches. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.